Today we're going to be talking about naturalism and its role in informing humanity and what the future could look like if we do so. You might be thinking, naturalism, that sounds weird, could be a weirdo religion, I'm out of here. Stick around, give it a shot. In fact, I want you to be as skeptical as possible for this entire video series. So have at it. Naturalism, a philosophical viewpoint according to which everything arises from natural properties and causes, and supernatural or spiritual explanations are excluded or discounted. So this is the point where a lot of people want to stop and get off the bus. Everybody's like good up until that last part of the sentence. That's a pretty bold claim. It seems like it's arbitrary and there's no reasoning behind it, when in fact it's all reason behind it. We'll get more into this as we go through this series, but to start off, we want to talk about some of the key components of it. Why is it that we look to the supernatural and spiritual matters to explain the world around us? In years past, religion had a monopoly on information and explaining the nature of reality to everyone. But since the scientific method was invented about 400 or 500 years ago, they've been giving up ground more and more. Think about it. We know a lot about atoms, physics, general relativity, biology, natural selection, evolution, and little by little, religion has given ground to these things. When before, it didn't budge. They had all the answers. So if they're changing and adapting, isn't that kind of in violation of the one true God, the all-knowing creator? He wouldn't have to change or adapt in any way. People are still waiting for science's explanations of certain really hard questions. Things like, is there an afterlife? What is consciousness? Where did the universe come from? And what's the essence of free will? I would argue that these questions are difficult not because we just don't know the answer, but also because we might be asking the wrong questions. That's going to add to the problem. Is consciousness something special? Is that something different than other physical combinations of atoms and highly complex systems? Or is it like a computer? We don't know the answer to that yet, but does it really matter? For example, take free will. Some people think that we have free will, some people don't. Some people think it's just a big math equation, and if you were smart enough and knew where everything was and how it all interacted, that you could just calculate the future. But religion tells us, at least in Christianity, that free will is a gift that God gives us. It's kind of a conundrum though, because he also says that he knows everything, including the future. Those two things can't be true. If he knows the future, you don't have free will. And you could always say, well, God understands it, you don't, he's smarter than you. But I think we shouldn't just give up, because that's where people gave up before we had science. And that wasn't right. There was an answer. They had to work for it. And I think it should be no different for us. Free will, even if it ends up being deterministic, for all intents and purposes, I think we can all attest that our consciousness seems very vivid to us and very linear in ways. And we have the illusion and feel like we're making decisions. Maybe they're predetermined, maybe they're not, but for all practical purposes, you have to decide what to do. So we can proceed without knowing the answer to what do we have free will or not. Just like we don't need to perfectly define what consciousness is to be conscient. But the point is, don't let that deter you. Oh, science hasn't given me an answer, so I have to go to God. I need an answer for something. You can just exist without the answer. Thoughts on the afterlife is actually a really interesting topic, and it's one of these difficult questions. I actually want to save that for another video. Nevertheless, I think that the same thing applies for the other difficult questions. We're alive, we're not dead, so we can continue on with thinking about naturalism in a practical way and making decisions. Just because we don't have answers to the what ifs that don't really have an effect on our lives outside of choosing to believe in a religion or not, then we should proceed without it. The thing about religious people is that they tend to give ground whenever there's a logical, reasonable argument presented to them with scientific facts, verifiable, repeatable evidence. You ask your average Christian nowadays, and most of them do in fact believe that the universe is much older than the 6,000 to 10,000 that's claimed in the Bible. That fact is something that they've been able to digest, and social issues have also forced religion to change its stance on things. Now, that's all well and good. It should evolve and change with the times, except for the fact that parts in the Bible say, don't change. This is the one true way to do it. It contradicts itself. Now, there are good parts in the Bible. There is, you could say, reality truths built into it. Things that we've seen natural selection hone and craft these universal truths. But that doesn't mean that we have to take all of it. So you're willing to give up a little bit of ground, but you're not willing to give up all of it. This goes back to cognitive dissonance. If the cost of changing these beliefs also implies a huge life change, that's gonna create a huge amount of cognitive dissonance in your life, and it's gonna be a huge motivating factor in you not making the full switch from theist to atheist or agnostic. These hang-ups are, by definition, biases, things that will keep you from progressing, things that will keep you from seeing what reality actually is. Believing something doesn't make it true by itself, but you can believe true things. It's a very subtle difference, but one that has huge implications for not just you, but everyone. So if they're willing to give ground on some scientific facts, if they sound reasonable, logical, and all the evidence is verifiable and repeatable, and the only thing stopping them from coming over to the true side is that we lack evidence or we lack something to give them in those more ambiguous areas of human society. Things like social issues, politics, ethics, philosophy. I think religion is the place that we should go for clues as to what should we adopt. So the solution is this. Naturalists need to go look at religion and really ask themselves honestly, what does religion give us as humanity that's a positive influence on us all? If we can find and identify the positive elements that can give us some kind of starting ground, why would we do this? Well, because religion is a byproduct of natural selection and evolution. Nobody would believe in a religion if it wasn't at some point or at some time responsible for keeping the human race alive. To illustrate this point, let's look at it this way. For one thing, religion was a way, back 10,000 years ago, for us to have some kind of structure, some safe environment when large groups of people were together. So what religion really did is it created a government system, laws, commandments that say these are the things you should do, these are the things you shouldn't do, and if you don't do them, you're punished on the government side. And then if you think, oh, you're a criminal that can cheat the system or maybe get by without us catching you, well, really, God's watching. He sees you do it, and you're gonna get punished in the afterlife anyway. So you better just be good all the time. By getting everybody to agree that if they all follow the same rules, abide by the same punishments, that it creates a safe place for people to be able to work safely without fear of being robbed or murdered. So we can focus on agriculture and domesticating animals, and by not having to move, pick up and be nomadic, we're able to progress and have more time to think and hone our craft. This was the key feature from taking us from animals to people. So religion was quite useful in that regard, something that we probably wouldn't be here, or at least not in this form today. This role that religion is playing in the past and now today of fulfilling kind of the moral compass for society, that's a tough one for a naturalist to have to create some kind of model that would be able to replace that. People could buy into it without having to think that there's some deity looking over their shoulder ready to punish them if they don't. So now we're talking about teaching our children things like integrity, character, honor, things that they'll take pride in doing the right thing even when they could get away with doing the wrong thing. That's an ideal that we could teach to other people. Now, we can't tease people with the benefit of everlasting life, but we can tempt them with the offer of a better reality, the one that they're already in and we know for sure is happening. In fact, when I was a Christian, I always felt weird about doing good deeds. I know it sounds silly, but I would always psych myself out thinking, am I doing this because I just want to help this person or because I'm trying to get brownie points with the guy upstairs? It made doing good works kind of awkward. I ended up avoiding it. Now that I'm agnostic, if I see a need and I go fill it, I can just feel good about that. It's genuine good deed with no hints of any kind of reward or praise. Really, this hypothesis that we're kind of getting to here is that we could just decide that, hey, if we all act good, do the right thing, follow laws, give each other the benefit of the doubt, and have some kind of moral character to do the right thing even when we could get away with it, then we can give up God and all the baggage that comes up with that. And it sounds silly that, oh, I'm just creating something that we can replace God with. But we do that with science already. There's a lot of things that you've come to accept logically because of that evidence presented to you. And it's kind of arbitrary who decides what to believe and what not to believe. Is the world 6,000 years old, or is it, 4.5 billion years old? How old is the universe? 13.8 billion years old. There are facts that you're willing to digest because it makes sense and the evidence fits. You can't possibly think that every single Christian being able to make up their own religion is something that's consistent with itself, when all over the Bible, it's this one person, this one God, this one religion, these one rules. You can't have your cake and eat it too. So if we can do the hard work of taking science, taking reality, and converting it into philosophy, ethics, and a complete model that replaces religion and the benefits that it would otherwise provide us, then we have a roadmap for the future. One that I cannot wait to see.